the bank.
Hey Brett, how's it going this week?
Good, Ange. How are you?
Good. Well, that means it's another episode of Money in the Bank, the personal finance podcast where we talk about all things related to personal finance. And, Brett, I surveyed 100 of our listeners and friends, and I asked, who do you think is more frugal, Angela or Brett? And who do you think they said?
Brett?
They did.
Haha, I
won. And I'm very sad because I think I'm more frugal and I think you're more cheap.
Maybe that's true.
I think I'm a lot more intentional, and I think you would just you would live in a studio if I let you.
Yeah. Studio, one room, no stuff.
Staring at the wall
Staring
all day.
at the wall, making money.
So anyways, yeah, good job with the trivia question. Good job being more frugal. I guess maybe you should start being the, main host of this podcast now.
Yeah, that's what the people want.
That's what the people want. They want the extra stinky episodes to continue.
Oh yeah, really, really weird Wednesdays are coming back.
All right. Well, this week we are talking about investing 401. So we've done several investing episodes on the podcast before. People cannot get enough of them.
Yeah,
they love them every time they do them, and they want more.
Yeah, easily our top-rated listened podcast. So here you go. This is another one that the people want. So bringing it back.
So in the past, we've talked about don't try to time the market. Just stay in your lane, do your strategy, chill out, and succeed. But now here I am saying, if you've made it this far, if you have listened to all 3 other investing podcasts, I am giving you permission to time the market.
What?
Right? I know.
Next you're going to be telling them to buy Bitcoin middle of 2019.
Bitcoin, just pay me $1,000 a day. No. So, there's only one time, though, that I'm giving you permission to time the market. Just one time. I guess technically 4 times a year if you invest in mutual funds. And really, it's because most mutual fund companies will release a schedule, and it's typically in March, June, September, and December, and they pay dividends out. And they'll say dividends will be released on, let's say the 20th of the month. And the day that dividends are posted, the stock price drops by the dividend amount. So let's run through an example so it makes sense. Let's say you have $1,000 and you invested on the 19th of that month. That means on the 20th, you will earn a dividend on that money. And so let's say you earn, $200.
Okay.
So now you have $1,200. It was a huge dividend.
Sweet.
That's a terrible example, but
making money.
Roll with me. Where on the flip side, if you didn't buy the dividend, then the stock price instead of $1,000 drops to $800 on the 21st. So you can buy 1.2 shares of stock if you wait until the 21st, where you only have 1 share on the 20th. Now the difference is, at the end of the day, the math is about the same, because if you reinvest a dividend, you get the same amount of stock, either way.
So this is basically just like a Achilles heel of the system that runs the stock market.
Right.
Or specifically stocks that apply dividends.
Right. Yeah. Yep. It's just the way the math works. So at the end of the day, whether you buy the stock on the 19th or the 21st, you're going to have 1.2 shares of stock if you reinvested that dividend. The only difference to you is if you buy it the day before and you earn a dividend on it, you have to pay taxes on that dividend.
Okay, so that's no good.
And if you buy it the day after, you just buy the stock. You don't have to pay any taxes on that.
Until next year, then the dividend.
Until next year, yes.
So 364 days later, then that would apply to you for your tax season.
Right. But, it would apply to you either way.
Right.
So,
better to pay later than to pay now, right?
Well, and if you pay now, you pay taxes on both dividends.
Oh,
if you buy
shysters.
later, you only pay the tax on the later dividend.
Okay.
So that's the key, is that in that example, let's say your tax rate is 25%, then really, in the first example, by the time they take the 25% out of the $200, that's $50, so you're left with $1,150. Okay. Where if you wait until the 21st, you get your full $1,200 in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so that is when I'm allowing you to time the market, is if you, again, if you're, this is like, and this is kind of splitting hairs, really, if you're, just putting the money in, it's all on automated investments. I'm not telling you to change any of that. Keep doing what you're doing. You're probably not going to notice that much of a difference in the long run. But if you are the person who is trying to optimize every last thing, here's something else that you can play with.
If you're going to be that person, better make sure you have all the basics down first, right?
Absolutely.
So, right, and you're not saying that the 20th is every month, right? Different stocks apply dividends at different times, right? So you have to have already wanted this anyway. Right. You're talking more about, does this apply to mutual funds and individual stocks, or just individual stocks?
Mutual funds and individual stocks.
Okay, so mutual funds also pay out dividends specific to their fund, right?
And I know mutual fund companies will release a schedule typically early in the month, like I said, March, June, September, and December, typically early in those months because they pay quarterly dividends. They will announce which funds are paying dividends and on what date they will be posted.
Right. So, if you are, if you're Angela and you're putting money in, your Vanguard fund every 2 weeks when your paycheck rolls in, then maybe, if you know this is coming, you're paying attention to the situation. You could have put it in on a Friday, but hey, you're going to wait and put it in right on Tuesday if the dividends hit on Monday, right?
Yeah. And I think, in that example, if you're somebody you're investing in the mutual fund every 2 weeks when you get paid, I personally wouldn't tell you to change it. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's dollar cost averaging. Some weeks that's going to be before the dividend. Some years it's going to be before. Some years it's going to be after. No big deal. I think where this really actually matters more is if you get a lump sum payout. Let's say you sell a house and you had a lot of equity in it, so you don't need it all for your next down payment, and you want to take a chunk of that equity and put it in the market. So let's say you're talking about $20,000. Obviously, you can see that if you sold a house and you had $20,000, this could really make a big difference in how much you get, right?
Right. Yeah. So not as effective on the week to week, inputs or automatic inputs, but big huge investments. I just got this big inheritance, right? I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to park it in mutual fund for a little while, 10, 15 years, and then it's going to let me retire off of it. I need to pay attention when I'm putting this into the market a little bit more carefully than I would otherwise. Don't hold your breath,
and don't wait. If it's January and you're Angie said to wait until after the dividend in March. I did not say that, right? So I'm talking about if it's close.
If you're within let's say a week max, right?
Yep.
Anything more than that, and you're probably going to miss out on some money. If
you might miss out on gains, and I don't want you to do that. So shove it in there. But if you're close, if you're paying attention to this sort of thing, that is one way to optimize. So the next point that I wanted to make is we've talked about HSA before on the podcast. If you need to catch up on that episode, we have a whole episode where we talk about the difference between HSAs and FSAs. But a strategy some people use, especially if they want to retire at a younger age or help pad their retirement even at a normal retirement age, is they have a high deductible plan. They save this HSA money tax-free, but then they pay for their current medical expenses out of pocket instead of using their HSAs. So the reason you do that is you can get a little bit more tax benefit, letting that money grow tax-free. HSAs are a really great tool. And once you get to a certain age, you don't have to use them just for health qualifying expenses. You can use them to fund your retirement. So that is another good way to save money tax-free for retirement.
So it's in addition, right, you can pull it separately from your 401k. You don't need to pull as much out of your 401k, but it would still count when you pull it out if you're in retirement age as your income, right, at that age.
Right.
Right. So it's not like you're getting around the tax rules for bumping yourself up into a higher tax bracket, pulling money from 401k and HSA and any other retirement accounts that you have. It all still counts, right?
Well, with the exception of Roth accounts.
Okay, you're right. Okay.
Just to make that clarification, if you invest in a Roth 401k, that's money that you're going to be able to pull out tax-free in retirement.
Right.
This isn't a super big one that I want to really elaborate on, but just a good thing to keep in mind that you can use it as a tool, and especially who is this most helpful for? It's really helpful for high income earners to get the tax benefits now in their younger years and then defer, these growths later for the future.
Right. Max out the money in your HSA so you're not paying taxes on it at the end of the year.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so then the next one we have is, this is a fun one. So we've talked a lot about early retirement on this podcast, and a big question people have is, well, if you're telling me to try to max out my 401k or IRA, how am I ever going to retire early? Where would I get the money from, right? Because that's all old people money. Good news, it's not all old people money, because you can do what's called a Roth conversion ladder.
Oh, man, Angela loves this one, guys. Here we go.
I do love this one. Makes me so happy. So an example of this is, let's say you decide to fund a traditional IRA. So that means that you're putting your money in tax-free. Well, then the real fun comes in. You can convert that IRA to a Roth IRA.
Because that seems like something that should be allowed.
So when you convert it, you do have to pay taxes on it.
Okay, so a little bit of penalty.
A little bit of penalty.
Or are you just paying it like in advance, right? You would have paid it anyway when you were going to pull it out. You're just paying it now.
Right.
Instead. On the smaller amount of money.
Yes. So you take your traditional IRA, you convert it to a Roth IRA. You pay your penalty, you pay your taxes. Not penalty, I don't want to say that. You pay your taxes because there's no penalty to convert, just the taxes. The money sits in there. Once that money has been in that conversion for 5 years, you can take out any contributions tax-free.
So anything that you put in, not interest?
Anything you put in, not interest, but anything you put in. So let's say...
Let's go with $5,000.
Let's say you put $5,000 into your traditional IRA, and then you convert it over to your Roth IRA. And people might ask, why not just put it into the Roth in the first place? Well, because the Roth has a lot more limitations on who can contribute to it and the income levels. So for a lot of people, once you hit, especially if you're dual income, you might hit that bracket and you can't dump it directly into the Roth. So you put it into the traditional.
Okay.
You convert it over. So we have our $5,000 that we've converted to the Roth IRA. Let's say we had to pay 10% tax on that. So we're down to $4,500. Well, then that money grows, right? Well, then in year 5, we can take out $4,500.
Okay, but there's $6,000 in that account now, right?
Yep. So the $1,500 keeps growing and growing for your sweet, sweet old people money. And the $4,500 you can have as a 30-year-old if
regular
you want
income. And so when I withdraw that from that account, because I already paid taxes on it, it's just my money.
Your money.
Right?
Yep.
And that does not count against my total income. Right, because I already paid taxes on it.
Right.
So,
yep.
So it doesn't bump me into a higher tax bracket. So it's a good way to kind of shell some extra money away without having to, bump yourself up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And so a lot of people will kind of keep funneling money over every year. And there's a lot of tax optimization out there of, so a lot of people, especially for the cohort of people who are in the FIRE movement, which is Financial Independence Retire Early, they will actually wait to do any of these conversions, and they'll just put money into a taxable account to fund their first 5 years of early retirement, and then they'll start converting it over because already their income is much, much lower than it was in their working years, because they're, a lot of people in this movement typically try to spend, probably less than, I would say, $60,000 a year, probably closer to the $30,000 to $40,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So if they're only taking $30,000 to $40,000 in income out of their taxable account, they're in a much lower interest rate bracket. So then when they convert this money over, they're not paying as much taxes on it, and then they can withdraw that 5 years later. So
can you, how many times can you do this, or does it all kind of like lump together, or can I stagger it?
Yep. You can stagger it.
Some people stagger it as well. 1 year and then 5,000 the next year.
Yeah, and that's actually beneficial. So even if you, don't have a lot of other sources of income, it would not be ideal. Let's say you had $200,000 in this account to convert it all at once, because you'd have to pay taxes on $200,000, which would bump you into a pretty high tax bracket. Mm-hmm. So it's much better to say, the correct strategy is to say, okay, I spend $30,000 a year, so I'm going to move over $30,000 this year. And then each year increase it for cost of living. So next year you would take that $30,000 and say, okay, I'm going to need $32,000 this year, and then convert that over and just take as much as you need. And then, so it's actually called a Roth conversion ladder strategy because you're doing a little bit every year.
Yeah,
yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it is meant to do that. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's a very fun strategy. There's a lot out there on the internet if you want to research it more. It's kind of like a confusing thing to wrap your mind around at first because you're like, this shouldn't be legal. But IRAs are a really beautiful thing. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with them.
Yeah, they protected the front door, so you can't put money directly into it, but they've totally left the back door wide open. So
yeah. And that's not to say it'll be open forever. And they might close it at some point. Lock it, throw away
once the money's there, it's there, right?
Yes, we hope. Some people have this fear that they're gonna change Roth IRAs in the future. So even though they said your money's gonna come out tax free, it won't. But I mean, we're also afraid of Y2K and hoarded cans under their bed. So take it all with a grain of salt. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about was another thing that I really love, which is tax loss harvesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't get me too excited.
So this is another really fun way to optimize your tax strategy. Fun, right?
Yeah.
You look so thrilled.
You love the taxes. I can do them. I hate them, though.
So this strategy is kind of fun, and it's been fun in the last couple of years because the stock market's gone down. So the best way to explain this is you can take an account that you have, a mutual fund that you have, and you can say, oh, look, this fund over its lifetime or over the past year has lost $5,000, we'll say. And you can...
Really hot burner. Glad you bought that one.
Really good one, right? Well, no, I mean, with the stock market fluctuations in the last year, there's been times where this has been the reality. Mm-hmm. And so what you can do is you can sell that and convert it all into a different stock or a mutual fund, I guess. The key here is that it needs to be like substantially different. But the funny thing about that is like they might say, oh yeah, substantially different. But when you look at the funds, you're like, these are pretty similar still, right? It's my money's still invested. It's still invested in a great fund. So it doesn't really make much difference to me. So you can move this money over. And then at the end of the year, when you get your statement from your mutual fund company, it'll say like $5,000 loss. And you can use this to offset any gains or dividends you've paid over the last year, which helps reduce your taxable income.
Interesting. But then, so you are harvesting, the losses. Mm-hmm. But then you still just turn that money right around and have it in there, and it's still making you money just in a different account.
Yeah.
So at what point is the police going to come knock on my door for this?
For what?
Because I'm like reporting income losses that I didn't actually lose. Well, you did
because
right?
You sold the stock, and you report losses when you sell a stock. Mm-hmm. So then when you flip it over, you don't report gains until you sell the stock as well. And so because you're not selling the new one, there's no gains to report yet. You do report your dividends, but they offset each other.
Okay.
Now with tax loss harvesting, my 5,000 was a little aggressive. I believe it's right around 3,000 per year that you're allowed to report. So they cap this. It's not like you can be like, okay. Oh yeah, I had a $500,000 loss and I'm never going to have to pay taxes again. Like they don't let you do that. It's only $3,000, but for a lot of people that could offset all of your dividends for the year. So you don't have to pay taxes on those, which is pretty cool. And the other fun thing is for the $5,000 example I had, you could use $3,000 for 2019, and then you could roll the $2,000 loss over to 2020.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So a little bit of a borrowing strategy depending on how your numbers shake out at the end of the year.
Yeah. And I will say Betterment is a robo-advisor, so they charge a lower fee than... I don't personally use Betterment. I will start by saying that, but I have explored the site enough. They charge like lower fees because they're a robo-advisor, and you can buy like Vanguard stocks, you can buy, Fidelity stocks, you can buy a whole slew of different types of mutual funds, and they will actually automate tax loss harvesting. So they have like algorithms that run to do it at like the exact right perfect time for you. And then at the end of the year, they'll just report they try to get you to like that $3,000 number or whatever, and they'll just report that on your statement automatically. So set it and forget it. You don't even have to do anything yourself.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It is pretty cool, but you're stuck with me doing it, so.
Yeah, you're probably better than the robots anyway.
And so this is another thing that, again, well, actually all of these things. So, the HSA that we've talked about, the don't buy a dividend, and the, tax loss harvesting, these are, again, very advanced investment strategies and techniques, and you're not, at the end of the day, if you didn't do any of this stuff, it's okay. Like, I do this because this is fun. Like, this is how I have fun, is I'm like, Brett, look what I did today. I tax loss harvested some more stuff. You don't have to do this. It is a way to optimize your financial picture, but I guess, when I look at the gains of where did I gain the most on my financial journey, the biggest gain is like stopping any bleeding. So paying off my student loan debt, paying off my automobile debt. That got me really far ahead, right? Mm-hmm. And then I started like saving money, and then we like bought a house, and we were really good at like saving money with that, and we got some investment properties, and these were all really good things. Getting that discipline to like save my money instead of spending it or whatever, that got me super far ahead in life. This stuff is just like the icing on the cake, like take it or leave it.
Right. It's not, this isn't really helping you retire that much earlier, but, maybe 1 year earlier if you maximize all this stuff at the end of the day.
Right.
If you just increased your income a little bit more.
But I will say,
in the same boat.
So who do I recommend this for? People who have already kind of graduated to this advanced level of like, you're already investing in the market, you're already saving, 50% of your income. You are getting your expenses lean, you don't have any debt, and you still want to feel like you're active in your financial journey. Because I think for me, that was part of it. I was like, well, we have all this stuff going, but like, how can I go to the next step? How can I do the next level? Because when your investments are kind of automated and all of this stuff is just happening in the background, you kind of feel like you lost this fun thing. And so for those people who want to go to the next step, these are some next steps you could take. Or for the person who isn't happy until everything is optimized, then keep going, right?
Yep.
And I know we have friends who are interested in this stuff, and if you're willing to like put in the time to learn, go for it, because it will help you minimally, but ultimately it'll at least help you have a better understanding of like the basics, right?
Right. I mean, we're still talking about thousands of dollars that are saved at the end of the day, but you're obviously putting in a lot more effort to like, squeeze the blood out of the turnip at that point.
It's diminishing returns, right?
Right. So you gotta be passionate about like really hitting these targets and hitting these goals. And we know people that are. Angela is totally in that boat. But a lot of people are just in the, I want to set it and forget it. And eventually I just want to like look at this countdown timer that says like my money just keeps investing itself automatically, and this countdown timer keeps getting closer to zero, and that's when I can retire, right?
Yeah.
And, that's a totally fine strategy as well for most people.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like Brett said, it's, if you fully optimize everything, maybe it's a little bit faster, but it's a toss-up, right? If you're doing 99% of everything correctly that we've talked about on the other investing episodes, you're really not missing that much more by this like last little 1%. But we have gotten some questions about this stuff, so for the people who are interested, I did want to talk about it on the podcast. Now, if this all went over your head, don't stress about it. Like, you can pretend we never recorded this. And if it didn't, if you're like, oh, I'm super intrigued by this and I want to know more, there's a lot of really awesome resources out there. I'm willing to, if you want to shoot me an email, we can like chat about it, and I can send you over some articles that I've read about this stuff that might be really helpful to you as well. So, all right, Brett, are you ready for a listener mail?
Yeah, as long as it's for you.
This is a fun one. It's for both of us.
Oh, what?
So this person said, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to let you know I paid off $3,000 of credit card debt so far this year. Thank you. I listen to you guys when I'm cleaning the house, and it keeps me entertained. So I'm glad we could provide entertainment to you. And I'm super happy you paid off $3,000 of credit card debt. That is really awesome.
Yeah, she must have been listening to one of those Weird Wednesday episodes.
Yeah, probably like the stinky one. Well, it's funny. So we've also gotten a lot of, well, I know a couple of people who, they listen to us when they like mow their yards. So if we can like help make your mundane tasks more interesting, I'm all for that.
Mundane tasks, baby. All right. Mundane. Yeah, I know my dad walks, I think he listens to us with his phone in his front pocket when he's cleaning up dog poop in the backyard. So
wow, we really like...
Really, yeah, people are really taking time out of their day. For
really carving out time for
podcasts.
this quality information. But no, thank you so much to all of our listeners. If you want to be featured in listener mail, feel free to shoot me an email. I will drop all of my contact information in, and we really appreciate everyone tuning in each and every week. So thank you very much. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Money in the Bank. Make sure to subscribe to us on the iTunes or Stitcher app so that you get weekly alerts every time we post a podcast. Or if you want, you can visit my website, moneyinthebankpodcast.com. And if you want to reach out with any questions or further comments, please email me at Angie@moneyinthebankpodcast.com. I look forward to hearing from you.
Money in the bank.